There were many people and governments that wanted to see this innovation literally stopped in its tracks. So it was argued before Parliament that a locomotive with a potential speed of 10 miles per hour would render anyone who travelled on it insane. It was claimed that the railways would desecrate the countryside, that its smoke would ruin the wool of the sheep, and that hens would stop laying. And then you could probably imagine that coach drivers, believing that the railways are going to put them out of business, started demanding an equal playing field. So that for decades, nearly every proposed railway line was petitioned against and had to be rerouted. Now, as funny as that all might seem looking through today's lens, in actual fact, this is a natural human response to disruptive change. So the digital age isn't just changing our economies and our workforces, it's also changing us as people. So just out of interest, can you raise your hand if you've been on Facebook or Instagram today? Yeah, of course you have. And I'm not surprised, because every minute we're sending 2 million emails and 12 million texts. Every day we upload 70 million photos on Instagram. And every 2 days the world is generating digital information, which is equal to all of the information generated from the dawn of time until 2003. And the social and digital media are starting to become a ubiquitous part of the customer and the visitor experience. Because technology is not the innovation. It is simply the vehicle and the enabler of innovation. And what we need to be more cognizant of is how is technology changing us as people? Who we are, what we care about, what we value, because that's what's really changing here. And that leads me to how we approach innovation. Because I think sometimes we think that in order to innovate, we need to travel to some distant shore in search of completely new ideas. When in actual fact, you already have everything you need in order to innovate. So there's no need to go out in search of new information or find the latest data or to start thinking like Steve Jobs. Everything you need in order to innovate is already right in front of you. It's just a matter of the lens through which you see it. So innovation requires imagination, an ability to be able to reframe what you see and what you know. Now, it sounds easy enough, but in fact, this is a learned skill and it requires time and discipline. So reframing is an ability to be able to look beyond your assumptions, beyond your biases, beyond the industry logic, in order to see a new picture and a new point of view. And yet the research is showing us that this is one of the greatest barriers to innovation. Because when we focus on our competitors, we unwittingly connect ourselves with a whole suite of market boundaries. Market boundaries being the fundamental assumptions that we share with our industry. Now, we adhere to these boundaries like they're created by nature, and so they dictate the industry that we operate within and the markets that we serve and the nature and the feature of our products and services. And yet, these are simply imaginary frameworks in which we've agreed to compete. So if you're looking to create truly innovative visitor experiences, if you're seeking to mitigate the threat of the share economy and other emerging economies, then you need to start looking beyond the competitor boundaries and restructure market boundaries. Now, that doesn't mean you ignore your competitors, it just means that you're looking to other cues for your ideas. Now, had Paul followed strategic logic, we would expect him to be looking to ways that they could compete against these disruptive new entrants. And so we'd anticipate that he'd come up with a strategy that might include a coffee shop or a bookstore or free internet from within the library. But instead what Paul decided to do was he wanted to look beyond market boundaries and he wanted to understand what the visitor experience was in other industries. And so he went out to explore the visitor experience for people that were attending seminars and rock concerts and the theatre and fashion festivals. And then he saw an opportunity to weave elements from the traditional library together with elements from these other industries, and he created a value proposition that was truly unique. What Paul and his team managed to do was they managed to look beyond the market boundaries and as a result attract a whole market of people who had never entered a library before. So that in 10 months in 2004, visitation increased by 380% and it's been growing to that level ever since. When we decide to look beyond the market boundaries and understand the customer and visitor experience in other industries, we open ourselves up to ideas that can actually lead to transformational innovation. Now today we're also starting to see a lot of organisations starting to move away from those traditional practices of brainstorming and planning to a more open approach to the way that they look at ideation and strategy. And it's what we call co-design or co-creation. Now this is different than looking at focus groups or consultation or collaboration because it really is about working alongside our customers and our stakeholders. The office is a dangerous place to view the world from. You really do need to get yourself and your teams out and into the streets to discover new perspectives and new points of view. Now, this is about learning the art of observation, the ability to be able to stand at a distance and observe with an open mind. If you have the courage to look beyond your assumptions, you will find that the path to innovation is right in front of you because it's your visitor, the core purpose of your business, who's the person most likely to ignite innovation in your team.